Good morning, friends of all ages. So, today, I'd like to talk to you
I'm going to stop you right here. Just going to stop. Oh, where's my microphone? So, Tyler, I appreciate the fact that you've got a message for all ages prepared for us today. I know it's going to be great because you always bring the thunder, and I appreciate that. But I've actually got something on my heart that I would like to share to our kids of all ages today. And it was something that came to me last night. It's been burning on my heart and mind, so I'm going to sub in for you. I'm going to ask you to just step back. Is that okay if you step back and I take this today?
Who would I be to stop that? If it's in your heart, Phil, please.
Awesome. Thank you, Tyler. I appreciate it. You can stay up here, though. Just stay up here. Okay. So let me invite some of our young people up to the stage, if we could do that. If you're a child or a young person who would like to participate, come on up. Come on up. All right. I know we got a few. All right. Come on. Have a seat. Get comfy. Get comfy here. All right. All right. Okay. So I need your help today because I'm old and I don't know things like I used to, like y'all know. All right. So I came across something the other day that sounded pretty hip and cool, but I don't know anything about it. Can someone here tell me what VR is? VR. We got a few people that know what it is? Okay. Piper, what is VR?
It's like this virtual reality thing where you technically put on a mask and then it shows you like your video game worlds, but you feel like you're actually there.
Okay, that makes sense. Tyler understands. He's nodding. That makes sense from what I read. So VR, virtual reality. You said you put on a mask, like I saw a picture of it. It's like this helmet, like an apparatus that allows you then to see like a totally different world and like experience, like live in it, right? So so VR, virtual reality, very interesting, I must say. So the reason I bring that up is because when I learned about this recently, it reminded me of this really interesting documentary that I saw years ago. And it was a famous documentary that lots of people saw. I think it was on PBS. I believe Ken Burns produced it. So the documentary was called The Matrix. Okay? So in this documentary, what we discovered is that all of us human beings are like batteries in a machine, and we're all connected to a giant virtual reality system. We all have like virtual reality helmets on, and we're actually like not here. Like we're actually in a virtual reality world. It's amazing when you think about it that's reality.
No, Phil, that's not true. That was not a documentary. That's a sci-fi fantasy movie. Neo is not real. We're not human batteries.
Okay, I think let me correct you. So I think you're confused. You're thinking about Star Wars, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the Ken Burns documentary, The Matrix. So what I want to say about that. So here's why I think this is interesting, right? It all connects. Here we go. Now, my next question is, how many of y'all like eggs? Any egg eaters amongst us? We've got a couple of egg eaters. Here's the egg eater. All right. So I like eggs too. Excellent source of protein. Now, there's a problem, though, with eggs, I've discovered, at least in America. A lot of us, when we get our eggs, well, I'll ask you, where do we get eggs from? Like, where do we get eggs from? This is not a trick question, I promise. Where do we get eggs? Piper?
Chickens.
Excellent, chickens. But the difficulty with how we get them in America a lot of times is that we get it through a process known as, and these are some big words, industrialized farming. It's a big fancy term that basically means that he knew it. That basically means we take these chickens and we put them in these tiny little cages where they can barely move. And we force them then in these tiny little spaces to make eggs for us that we then eat and get our protein from. And even though I love my eggs, I got to tell you, that's kind of depressing. It's kind of sad how badly we treat these little chickens. But here's the good news. Apparently, some scientists from Iowa State came up with an idea inspired by Ken Burns' The Matrix. They're creating these little virtual reality helmets that are the size of chickens' heads. And they're going to put them on the chickens that are in the cages so that they can live in the chicken matrix, okay? And so they're going to have a chicken matrix. They're going to live in a virtual world of beautiful meadows and streams and fat, juicy caterpillars on the ground. And they're going to meet all their chicken friends in the virtual reality world so that they can be happy while they're in their cages. right? So my question to you is, I'm curious. I started reading that. I was like, I wonder what kids today who are accustomed to virtual reality, what they might think about that. So I'm curious. Does anybody want to raise a hand and share? How does that make you feel? What do you think about that idea? Anybody? You were doing this to your head. You got some opinions on this? Do you want to say anything?
Dumb.
Dumb? It feels dumb? Why is that dumb? What do you think about that?
Weird, actually.
Say it again?
I think it's weird.
It's weird. Okay, totally. Chicken VR, a little weird. Okay, I feel you. Any other thoughts, immediate reactions to this idea? Piper?
And not just put the chickens in an actual meadow so you don't have to make all these other virtual reality.
Oh, yeah, so why not just put the chickens in real reality of a real meadow with real caterpillars and not do that's a good question. Sadly, I think the answer to that is that it's not as cheap to put them in the meadow. This is actually cheaper to give them a fake world and make them think that they're free when they're really not. So for profit, that's probably the answer. So yeah, to say that, that's kind of how I feel. Like y'all are kind of hitting it where I'm feeling like, even though it costs more money, maybe the real answer should be, instead of trying to convince chickens who are locked up that they're actually free, maybe we should just free them? What do y'all think? Maybe? I don't know. I think that Tyler, I'm going to force Tyler to talk about chickens with you now in Children's Chapel, so y'all can discuss this all you want as you go back to Children's Chapel. Thank you so much for coming up here. I appreciate it. Thank y'all. And we'll sing you a song as you lead out.
The Matrix isn't real. The Matrix is not real.
Yes, it is. We're going to do something a little different this morning. Normally, we have our meditation at this time followed by the sermon, but today I'm going to flip those elements around, so sermon first, then meditation, and by the end of this little homily, I think you'll see why. In Living Buddha, Living Christ, Thich Nhat Hanh uses the word mindfulness, or some derivative, over 200 times. Now, it's a short book, so that averages out to at least one reference to mindfulness for every page. Obviously, it's important. The Buddhist practice of mindfulness has become a rather trendy topic over the past several years. All the cool kids are doing it. In fact, here you see it featured on the cover of a Time magazine special edition that I literally just bought at Publix last week. So if you know that a relatively fetching young blonde woman is telling you it's good, it must be good, right? That's what we've been trained. But what exactly is mindfulness? These words come from Thich Nhat Hanh, from Living Buddha, Living Christ. In Buddhism, our effort is to practice mindfulness in each moment, to know what is going on within and all around us. When the Buddha was asked, "Sir, what do you and your monks practice?" he replied, "We sit, we walk, and we eat." The questioner continued, "But sir, everyone sits, walks, and eats." And the Buddha told him, "When we sit, we know we are sitting. When we walk, we know we are walking. When we eat, we know we are eating. Most of the time, we are lost in the past or carried away by future projects and concerns. When we are mindful, touching deeply the present moment, we can see and listen deeply, and the fruits are always understanding, acceptance, love, and the desire to relieve suffering and bring joy." As he observes elsewhere in the book, Thich Nhat Hanh explains to us that mindfulness is really hearing a bird sing, or really seeing a blue sky. And in doing so, we touch the seed of the Holy Spirit within us. I consider mindfulness to be the greatest expression of pure worship achievable by the human soul. The practice of mindfulness is what allows each of us to experience and savor life in the way that a sommelier experiences and savors a glass of fine wine. Being present to the details of the sublime now naturally fills the heart with gratitude. And gratitude, I am convinced, is the heart of all spirituality. Thích writes, "Every time I touch food, whenever I see a flower, when I breathe fresh air, I always feel grateful." In my own practice of mindfulness meditation, I have often found myself overcome by a feeling of gratitude that rushes over me like a great wave, and it permeates everything. I can almost feel it on my skin, thick and tangible and palpable. It actually reminds me of a line from one of my all-time favorite movies, American Beauty. Near the end of that movie, the disembodied protagonist, played by Kevin Spacey, says the following: "There's so much beauty in the world. Sometimes I feel like I'm seeing it all at once, and it's too much. My heart fills up like a balloon that's about to burst. And then I remember to relax and stop trying to hold on to it. And then it flows through me like rain, and I can't feel anything but gratitude for every single moment of my stupid little life." I believe that we increase the likelihood of experiencing such moments of transcendence the more we choose to practice mindfulness. So I consider mindfulness one of those very rare things, an absolute and unqualified good within our universe, except when it's not. Karl Marx famously observed that religion is the opium of the masses. Now, here in the West, we have naturally applied Marx's critique specifically to Christianity. Throughout history, Christianity has been applied, or misapplied, as a drug to sedate and control the downtrodden. From justifying race-based slavery to offering promises of eternal bliss on streets of gold in the hereafter in order to disincentivize the poor and oppressed from rising up to seek justice and equality in the here and now. This co-opting and corruption of Christianity by forces of racism, sexism, and classism is what led many conscientious Westerners, including many Unitarian Universalists, to reject Christianity outright. And those looking for a new religious perspective cast their eyes to the East. Buddhism, in particular, has been a favorite form of alt spirituality for disillusioned Westerners for decades. And that makes sense because, obviously, the only religion susceptible to being co-opted and corrupted by patriarchal, white supremacist, heteronormative, anti-science values fueled by turbo-capitalism is Christianity. Right? Obviously. So could something as beautiful and as pure as the practice of mindfulness be similarly co-opted, corrupted, and commodified? Everything in this world casts a shadow. From a recent article in Fortune magazine, from Goldman Sachs traders to Google programmers, big business loves meditation. In 2015, the meditation and mindfulness industry, let me say that again. The meditation and mindfulness industry raked in nearly $1 billion. This year, 22% of employers will offer mindfulness training, typically priced between $500 and $10,000 for large group sessions, a percentage that could double in 2017. A mindfulness training program incubated at Google grew revenue more than 50% last year by offering 2-day workshops up to $35,000 for only 50 people, to dozens of other Fortune 500 companies, including Ford and American Express. Why are corporations spending so much money on mindfulness training for their employees? Well, obviously because corporations are people, just like you and me, with big hearts. And the most important thing to any corporation, their bottom line, is the physical and spiritual well-being of their employees. In a somewhat controversial article from 2013 entitled Beyond McMindfulness, scholars and Buddhist practitioners Ron Purser and David Loy wrote the following. Corporations have jumped on the mindfulness bandwagon because it conveniently shifts the burden onto the employee. Stress is framed as a personal problem, and mindfulness is the medicine to help employees work more efficiently and calmly within toxic environments. Mindfulness training has wide appeal because it has become a trendy method for subduing employee unrest and promoting a tacit acceptance of the status quo. In many respects, corporate mindfulness training has a close resemblance to methods referred to as cow psychology, because contented and docile cows give more milk. Today, we might call it chicken psychology. And it's not just corporations. It's happening in prisons. It's happening in schools. Mindfulness is being used as a powerful form of social control of the masses, a sedative to keep everyone calm and under control so the boat never rocks, so that the world and the powers that be never have to change. Every religious practice, every religion, has the capacity to be co-opted by the powerful and weaponized. That is, to be used as a tool of oppression against the weak. Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Unitarian Universalism. So what to do? Ditch all religion? Tell everyone to stop praying and stop meditating? I believe that's a short-sighted answer that ignores the big picture and forgets about those who are pulling the levers and turning the wheels behind the curtain. We cannot and ought not throw away everything that casts a shadow. Religion can be a powerful agent to advance light and goodness and beauty in an often dark and evil and ugly world. In the midst of the spiraling chaos of this world and the inexorable pull created by its centrifugal force, faith is that which coheres. It is the center that holds us together in defiance of the maelstrom of fear and hate and heartache that would seek to otherwise tear us apart. Just because mindfulness and meditation and prayer have been co-opted by the powers that be, that doesn't mean that we should simply abandon them. As I prepare to close out this portion of our worship service this morning, I'd like to leave you with this little anecdote from Living Buddha, Living Christ. After attending a retreat in the community of practice where I live in France, a Catholic priest from North America asked me, "I see the value of mindfulness practice. I have tasted the joy, peace, and happiness of it. But how can I continue to practice when I get back to my church?" I asked him, "Is there a bell in your church?" He said, "Yes." "Do you ring the bell?" "Yes." "Then please use your bell as a bell of mindfulness, calling you back to your true home. When I was a young monk in Vietnam, each village temple had a big bell like those in Christian churches in Europe and America. Whenever the bell was invited to sound, the villagers would stop what they were doing and pause to breathe in and out in mindfulness. Breathing in, we say silently, "Listen." And breathing out, we say, "This wonderful sound brings me back to my true home." Our true home is in the present moment. The miracle is not to walk on water. The miracle is to walk on the green earth in the present moment. So to help lead us to our true home this morning is our worship associate, Nancy Murrey-Settle. As many of you know, Nancy is a social studies teacher at Stanton College Prep. But what some of you may not know is that she is currently working on certification as a mindfulness educator. She has attended a mindfulness-based stress reduction retreat offered through the University of Massachusetts, and she has completed multiple online classes in mindful leadership for educators. So in other words, she's an expert in mindfulness. And in the face of such expertise, I'm going to shut up. So I've cut my sermon a little short today to give Nancy the opportunity to teach us all a bit more about the mechanics of mindfulness and help lead us all in some mindfulness meditation. So please welcome Nancy back to our lectern.
Very interesting things that Philip was saying, and very, true in the sense of whenever I use mindfulness and integrate it into my classroom practice with my students, and I do always tell them, look and see, look who's offering you this and see what their intentions are. Are their intentions, and I'm in a school setting, is it to control you, to quiet you, to manage the behavior in the classroom? Be wary of that, because really mindfulness is about empowering the individual to make choices and giving us each that space so that we can make that choice. I should say that my practice is completely secular and non-sectarian, and it's actually my intention, as I said earlier, is to wake people up to their present reality and to keep one woke in this world. So it can also be used, to combat racism and social injustice when people are really awake in the world. Let me tell you a little bit about what I'm going to do today with you. I'm going to talk somewhat, and then we'll have 3 sort of sessions of silence, because just really to talk, kind of go off what Philip was saying, it's in that silence, in that space where you individually are empowered and you're not being controlled by someone else's agenda. So oftentimes corporations and even schools will want to just ring the bell to get everyone quiet and back on task. But those people that are offering it may not have a daily mindfulness practice, a sense of dropping into their own internal landscape and having deep communication with themselves so that then they can lead other people to be comfortable with that silence, with that quietness, to find that space. So we're going to have 3, and so if you haven't done that before, it can be very, disconcerting to be in silence. So we're going to have a 1-minute silence period, and then I'll talk a little more, 2 minutes, and then we'll end up with a 3-minute meditation piece. I believe I can swing all that in. It's getting a little tight. And at the very end, Philip is going to ring the church bells, the very last 3-minute one, to bring us out, and I'm going to ask you to, he'll ring them 3 times, and to listen to the sound of the bell until it comes to silence. And that's what we're looking for here. And I'll do this really quick and just ask you to listen to the sound. The bell, when it comes at the end, sometimes isn't to stop. You can focus your attention on the sound and see if you can pinpoint that space when the sound stops and when silence begins. As you become more focused, and I might switch to the other bell. This one wasn't working as well as I thought it would. You can hear the sound longer and longer as you practice and become more focused. What I'm going to first ask you to do is just notice, pay attention. Notice how you're sitting right now. Just notice how it feels. And then I'm going to ask you to assume a more mindful posture. So you'd want to sit up straight, make sure your spine is straight and your head is sort of your spine's going up to the ceiling, that you can feel and be aware of your body in the chair and your feet on the floor. Now I just ask you, without judgment, do you notice a difference? Is there a difference in your attention and the way that you're experiencing the world? And you can go back to your relaxed position so that you can just notice. And the idea is not to judge or say, oh, there's one way of that sitting that's better than the other, but just to notice that difference. What we're going to do when we do mindfulness is we want to focus on the breath. So the breath is always with us. It has nothing to do with income or position or class, and it's not something that we compare to one another. Like, I don't ever recall sitting somewhere and seeing someone and say, wow, she's a better breather than I am, or so it kind of equalizes us all, and it's a good place to have an anchor. So I'm going to ask you to sit in a mindful position, and as you take a deep breath, breathe in deeply, and find a place where your breath kind of naturally goes. It could go to your throat, to your heart, could go to your belly. If you find any tension, breathe into that and then let it go. We're going to continue to just breathe in and out together for a minute. Mindfulness is not the suppression of thought. Ideas come and they go. You don't have to judge them or judge the fact that you're having or not having thoughts. Be gentle and kind with yourself. Just bring your attention back to the breath. You can always just label thinking as thinking, and then you move on to the next thought. The next thought will come. It's the nature of the mind. You can relax into the acceptance of that and know that you are grounded in your breath. Take another deep breath and breathe this time. Breathe into the soles of your feet. Let your breath go all the way through the body to the soles of your feet. Pay attention to your body, where it is in contact with your chair. And as you breathe in, the breath goes to the bottom of your feet. Your feet are grounded in the floor. And imagine the energy of your feet extending down through the floor, down into the earth. Breathe in and out at a comfortable rate, feeling your body's connection with the seat you are in, the connection to your feet on the floor, your breath coming in and out, sitting alone together with everyone in the room. The breath rising and falling, a tide naturally coming in and out as you are planted in the earth. It is in the silence, the space between the words, where the power of mindfulness lies and gives you freedom. As Viktor Frankl said, between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Finding that silence, that space, where instead of reacting, hearing some stimulus, some outside input, and then quickly, knee-jerk reaction, we take a breath, we take a pause. And that's what mindfulness trains our minds to just wait, stop, take that pause. Do I have to react in a certain way? No, I have the power. I have the freedom to choose my response. It's in the silence and in the space.